Welcome to How to Build a Nonprofit, the only podcast dedicated to deep dive interviews with nonprofit founders about their journey, their why, board development, fundraising, staffing, leadership, and making a big impact. We ask courageous and visionary founders about their struggles and successes and everything in between. As a listener, all you have to do is learn and appreciate. I'm your host, Jordan Thierry, and this is How to Build a Nonprofit. In this episode, I interview Patricia Ashanti, founder and CEO of Delta Circles. Patricia's pathway to Delta Circles began with failure, a mistake that cost her deeply, and one she committed to helping others in her community avoid. And since she made that decision, she's experienced a lot of growth and success. At first, her organization focused on helping Black people in the Arkansas Delta increase their financial literacy by stepping in and providing them with information and resources to prevent the economic exploitation that insurers, credit card companies, and banks thrive on. From there, her team realized the community needed much more. And over the course of the last 12 years, they've also opened up a community hub with multifaceted partnerships and programs for youth and adults, including farming, technology, and workforce development. In our conversation, she shares with me why she decided to start a nonprofit rather than a business, as well as some of the early struggles that taught her valuable lessons about board development, accounting, and cultivating a dedicated staff. I'm encouraged by Patricia's devotion to her vision for community change, and humbled by the spirit with which she faces the challenges of building a robust organization from the ground up. All of this and more in today's episode, and I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did. All right, we're recording. Patricia, so excited to speak with you today. Can you just start by telling us a little bit about the community that you come from in the Arkansas Delta?
First of all, I would like to just thank you for even considering spending this time with me today. I would be happy to tell you a little bit about the community that I'm from. I'm from a small town in the Arkansas Delta called Helena-West Helena. We are right off of the Mississippi River, and it's a small town of probably about 12,000 people.
And a lot of people are familiar with the Mississippi Delta, and sometimes folks forget that the Delta also stretches into Arkansas and Tennessee a bit. Can you tell me, what is the Arkansas Delta like? How is it different or similar from the Mississippi Delta?
The Arkansas Delta is actually very similar to the Mississippi Delta. I would say, honestly, you probably could call us cousins. We both experience very similar demographics, very similar challenges in regards to our economics, in regards to job outlooks for our community. So we are very similar. And I think that when you look at how we can grow, we're looking at similar opportunities for growth as well.
And you kind of mentioned the demographics. What are the demographics of the Arkansas Delta region in Helena-West Helena?
Well, unfortunately, some of them are a little heavy, I guess you could say. We come from a background where we've had a lot of racial tension, and we have a demographics of about 33% poverty in our communities. We are predominantly a Black community, and I think that's very, very similar to some of our neighboring communities in the Mississippi Delta. So we're very close to Clarksdale, Mississippi.
All right. Clarksdale is, I don't know if it's the official birth of the blues, but it's a very important place in the history of blues music, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we have a little bit of that as well. We are the home of the King Biscuit Blues Festival.
Oh,
and
okay.
that people come from all over the world to attend that once a year in October. And so also going to Clarksdale as well to see that beautiful city.
And what are, one or two things that you love most about that community in the Arkansas Delta and the town in which you're from?
Well, one of the things that I really love is the beauty of our community. We have this vegetation called kudzu, and it grows all over the hills, and it was put here to keep the hills from mudslides and things. But I think it makes the place look very much like a forest. I think we have just a very beautiful community. Of course, I love the people. I love the fact that it's people who work hard, just as in many other rural communities, and people who also have a lot of aspirations for other things to happen in their lives.
All right. Yeah. Every time I'm in that region, I'm always just taken aback by how lush green it is. And I think it's underappreciated in that regard, but it's just so beautiful with the sun shining on all those vibrant greens, whether they be farmland or wildland. It's always just like really gorgeous. So I always enjoy visiting the Delta for that region. Haven't been to the Arkansas Delta yet, but hopefully get there soon and check y'all out. So on that tip, can you tell us a little bit about Delta Circles and what is Delta Circles? And yeah, what are the things that you all are doing in community? What's your mission?
Sure. I'll be glad to tell you about Delta Circles. Is a nonprofit organization. We have been working in the Arkansas Delta since, I believe, 2013. And our mission is to serve families to end poverty and to advance economic equity. We do that by focusing on entrepreneurship, financial literacy, and technology. Over the last 3 to 4 years, we actually acquired a school that we're renovating into an opportunity hub. And that has really allowed us to expand our work and focus even more on innovation. We have a aquaponic system where we're actually growing our own food inside the building. We also have a coding league that we have been able to have our students to participate in, doing several things related to agriculture and technology.
And this sounds so amazing. And can you just tell me, like, who founded the organization? Was it just yourself or yourself and some others? And why the name Delta Circles?
Yeah, well, I am the primary founder of the organization, and it started more as a community organization, just a group of people coming together. And my reason for bringing people together was to focus on financial literacy. I personally struggled a lot with my finances, and once I learned better, I wanted to share with others the things that I learned. And the name Delta Circles comes from a partnership that we had from the very beginning. We had a partnership with a group called Circles. It's a national organization called Circles. Their focus was on poverty when it came to more of a community, larger community level. I wanted to focus on it as it related to individuals and really examine how generational poverty impacted individuals. But that connection is where the name Circles came from. And then, of course, us being in the Delta. So it actually was not very creative. It just worked. But the concept of circles has always been important because everything that we do, we really focus on the importance of intimate gatherings and bringing individuals together, learning from each other. That includes when we bring women together to discuss their finances, when we bring small business owners together to discuss their businesses and how we can help them to grow, and youth. So it really has been true to its name in the fact that we still focus on the intimacy of small groups and growing from that and learning from each other.
Oh, wow, that's wonderful. And I understand that you gave a talk a few years ago at the Federal Reserve Bank in St. Louis, telling a little bit about like your personal journey and why financial literacy was so important for you and why you wanted to embed that into the mission of Delta Circles. Are you willing to share that story with us here today?
Well, sure. I went to school here in Arkansas. And while at school, I ended up, like most people, I ended up with a little job at McDonald's work and purchased my first car. Was very proud of it, but did not understand that while trying to anticipate how much I needed to pay for that car, I didn't consider car insurance. And I ended up in a car accident. When I was in the accident, the thing that I can remember the most was my mom's voice saying, make sure you pay the car insurance. But at that time, I had not paid it. So I was in this just whirlwind of events that really made me realize, I really don't understand finances the way that I need to. So here I was with a brand new car that was not completely totaled, but, it cost me like $5,000 and I'm working at McDonald's. So it was like, it could have been $50,000. And it was just it was something that shocked me and really made me try to figure out what is it that I'm doing wrong? What is it that I don't know? And I just went on a journey and started learning from anybody that I could get, anything I could read. And once I learned more, then, I was like, my people in Helena need to know this. And I really, even though I was convinced then that I wanted to help people with finances, it didn't happen until over 10 years later. From that point, I started working for the government, but I always knew there was something else that I needed to be doing.
And can you kind of take us back to that time period before you started Delta Circles? Well, yeah, you said you were working for the government. So what kind of work were you doing?
Accounting. I was doing accounting and, constantly felt like, this is not really where I'm supposed to be. It was where I was supposed to be at that time. That career took me to Duluth, Minnesota, to Escanaba, Michigan, Rutland, Vermont, and I got a chance to see all of these other places and to see what other communities look like. But when I got ready to start my organization, I was actually a stay-at-home mom. And I was doing little jobs here and there, but just trying to find that tool that will allow me to be able to help others.
And so when you started Delta Circles, did you incorporate it as a nonprofit immediately, or was it a fiscal sponsor or a project of another organization?
Well, the organization that I mentioned, Circles, when I went to be certified to teach their curriculum, I also became certified to teach a curriculum called Getting Ahead in a Just Getting By World. Once I, again, found the curriculum that was what I thought I could use to help others, I started bringing people together. The first group I brought together was a group of, I believe it was about 4 women. And we started meeting on Sunday afternoons. We started talking about generational poverty. We started talking about life changes, stages of change, what happens in your life when you really examine the habits that you've had in the past. And it was such an impactful experience for me that again, I realized that I wanted to share with others. So from there, I started to share with groups at the Housing Authority, at the community college, anywhere where I could find a group of people that would let me come and work with them, for several weeks at a time. Then once that grew, we realized that, okay, what is this? I started to have to ask myself, are you building this as an individual business owner, or is this a nonprofit? And at that time in the state of Arkansas, we had a very good nonprofit organization that had a lot of research. So when I did the research, I realized that what I was trying to do was on a broad level, that I wasn't trying to just do it for myself. I wanted to serve the mass. And that's when I went on and decided to move forward as a nonprofit, identified my potential board members, start interviewing them. And, we created the board and went through all those necessary steps.
Wow. So I think that that's really enlightening because I think it's a step that a lot of nonprofits often skip. And what I'm speaking to is asking themselves the question, is this a business or is this a nonprofit, right? Because I've encountered a lot of nonprofit founders who really should be running a business, who like their idea is a great one and it's can be impactful, but sort of the mechanics of it, the demand, just the overall model sometimes would fit better as a business, right? Can you just tell us like what those indicators were for you when making that final determination that no, this wasn't going to be a business, it was going to be a nonprofit?
Well, I think it is definitely it's a very difficult decision to make, because even though you know that you have the vision, you have the passion, you may not know that oftentimes you're going to carry the heaviest of the load and you're going to do most of the work. So I think it is important to think in terms of, if that's the case, then do you really want a board that's going to be making all the decisions if you're the one doing all the work? So, and I think for me, again, I realized that what I wanted to do, I just wanted to serve a lot of people. And the funny thing is, though, with that, is that there were still times that it was just me, and it almost was as if I was running a business. What I have learned since then is that you have to run your nonprofit as a business. So it still goes hand in hand. But I was very fortunate that from the very beginning, my board was a board that supported me. They supported my vision. They had confidence in me. So that support never made me feel like, it had to be one or the other. I felt like I had made the right choice.
Absolutely. You're right. And when you start a nonprofit over a business, you are giving up that power and autonomy to the organization and the board. And, it's not just you running your show doing whatever it is that you want to do, right? You're held accountable to the mission and to a board of directors. Can you tell us a little bit about your board, how that first board that you developed, how did you go about identifying who those members were? Why did you think that they would be great, stewards of your organization?
Well, I thought about, I knew what we wanted to do. So I started the board off by trying to create some diversity in terms of, I made sure I had an accountant, made sure I had an attorney, an educator, a business owner. And so I looked for those people, a medical doctor. And so those people were the ones, and then that I looked for. And sometimes when I got one, that person would help me consider someone else. And so it sort of grew from that. And from the beginning, we had a board that really, we opened in prayer, we ended in prayer. We all knew that it was a long journey. When you look at the issue, our logo said that we're ending poverty. Well, that's saying a lot, because you're not going to end poverty. So it's a big job. Over the years, when I've looked back over, just my history and what I came from, when I look at the depth of the poverty that I came from, it reminds me that this is a real rooted thing, and it takes people who are committed long term. And I was fortunate to have.
Wow, that's amazing. Did you encounter resistance from board members at all in those early years? And was it healthy resistance or just painful resistance, or both?
I really did not encounter a lot of resistance. The biggest problem that I had is I had my board member that was my accountant. Hopefully nobody will ever know who this person is. But somehow, somewhere along the way, there was a misunderstanding about who makes sure that this 990 is done. It's a tax form that every nonprofit has to do. We weren't making any money, so no one thought that you had to file anything. But I didn't know that. So I thought the person I had on my side would know that. What ended up was we ended up actually our 501c3 status was restricted for a while. That was devastating, and it shocked me so much that it made me almost just stand still for a while, for like half a year. I didn't have confidence in the board. I didn't have confidence in the people that I had chosen. But after we got past that, and getting past that meant that I had to act like I was the boss again and do the things that I needed to do to get us back on track. And I did that, got other board members on there, and we've been able to continue to thrive since then.
So if I'm understanding correctly, you went multiple years without filing the 990. Even though you didn't have money, you still have to basically say, we didn't make no money, right?
It was new.
Right, right, yeah.
But it's an error that a lot of new nonprofits make.
Yeah.
And because the crazy thing about that particular error is that the IRS will let you do it for 3 years without telling you that, you need to. They don't tell you until you're in trouble.
Right.
And then there was like, wait a minute, you're supposed to do this. And so just being new to nonprofit and being so passionate about what it is that we were trying to do, I didn't know that I didn't have the right person in my corner to know that either. So that person was right for a lot of other reasons, but we just didn't know that. And so that was something that was a big growing moment for me.
Absolutely. And I think it's a common misconception among many people that if someone's a lawyer or attorney, they must know about nonprofit law, but it's not the case at all. There's so many areas of law, and people really have specified expertise in their particular area of law, and may not know just the very basics of nonprofit law if that's not something they've worked in or studied.
Exactly.
It's good to have a lawyer, but also it's good to have a lawyer that knows something about nonprofit law, right?
Yeah, and it's funny because, here we are over 10 years later, and I'm looking for a lawyer right now. And I'm keeping all of that in mind right now, so it's really the due diligence that I have to do now. I understand more how important it is to have someone that has worked with other nonprofits, that have seen things, because I don't know everything. There's no way that I could. So I do need a team around me that does know more than I do in certain areas.
Absolutely. Many law schools have nonprofit law clinics. So you may, look into some of the law schools in your state to see if they have nonprofit law clinics or law students that are planning to go into nonprofit law. And, they're just board members, so they don't need to be barred or anything yet.
Exactly.
But they're just bringing in that expertise. So maybe even a student or recent law graduate could be helpful. So yeah, that's super. That's a great insight to share. And so for several years, you didn't have any money, right? No money to report. So you were operating Delta Circles, just, as on a volunteer basis, right? Without getting paid. How long until you got your first, significant grant or donation?
Well, it was over 3 years before I got a grant that would pay me anything. There were times where I would get grants for like $2,000, or it would be grants that were big enough to buy curriculum, but my time was still free. But the first grant came really crazy. It was supposed to go to someone else. And I ended up, before I started my nonprofit, I worked as a financial manager for another nonprofit. And that was, I think, really, it was my training ground, because this nonprofit leader, she didn't play. And I learned a lot about how to manage things from her. But a grant came through, and someone that was supposed to do the work did not do it. So they was looking for someone else. And so they gave me the opportunity. So that was my first grant where I had some funds to pay myself something. It was even longer before I had a chance to really pay myself a salary. And that one came through the Rockefeller Foundation. I worked with their program manager. He kept telling me, he said, I don't want to give you a little small grant. I want to give you something that's going to be multi-year, that's going to actually, help you to be paid and help you to. And it took us almost 2 years to get that worked out, but it happened. And I'm still receiving multi-year funds from that organization now.
Wow, that's phenomenal. And it also goes to show that it does require patience, and that money doesn't come overnight, right?
Yes, that's true.
And so at some point, it sounds like when you first got some resources to pay yourself, you did so as a contractor to the organization.
Yes.
And then when you finally got some multi-year funding, were able to set yourself up as an employee of the organization. Is that right?
Yes. And still, being the primary employee, occasionally hiring other people on contractual basis. And just about 3 years ago, about the time that we acquired the facility that we have now, a different funder saw that we needed to have more staff to advance, which of course I agreed with totally. And so the position of administrative assistant went from a part-time position to a full-time. And that has really been a game changer for us.
That's excellent. So what would you say at this point, like how many sort of, what are you, like 10, 12 years in as an organization?
Yes. And right now we have 4 employees, and then we still have some that are part-time. They have other jobs, but it's funny because it's like I joke with them sometimes. It's like they're working full-time for me, but they're just getting paid part-time salaries until we can get those salaries up. But yeah, we have a team. As I am building our team, I try really hard to build it with people who care about the mission, because I know that at any given year, I may not have the salary to pay you. Usually the only way that I have you now is because of a grant for whatever project we're working on, like for this year. And they know that, because that's what their contract would say. But even though people know that, when funds run out, that impacts their lives. So some of them will stick with me, for those months until, something else comes through, and some cannot. But I try really hard to get individuals who really believe in this mission. I don't expect them to sacrifice the way I would sacrifice, but that they do want to see this move forward.
How can you tell they care about the mission? What are the things that you kind of look for to see their real investment in the mission of the organization when you're getting to know them, interviewing them, et cetera?
Honestly, for me, it is them giving up their time before they can get paid, showing up on a volunteer basis, and I get to see their character. Some of it could be them showing up for programming that we're doing. Some of it right now with us having a facility, there's so much, especially for guys, that we need help with. And when I see that person is willing to be there without asking for anything, then when I see an opportunity to be able to pay them for their services, then those are the first individuals that I look to.
So basically volunteers, right?
Volunteers.
People that are willing to invest their time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what would you say is the most challenging part of being a leader of a team and building a team within the nonprofit context?
For me, there are 2 challenging things. One is I want our people to be paid what they're worth. And I know that that's a gradual thing, especially being a Black-led nonprofit organization. We just don't get the type of funding right off the bat that some others might. And so that is a challenge for me, always wanting that. And then also just really, for me, I really want to be able to see everybody on our team grow. I work really well by myself sometimes. And so it's a little bit of a challenge for me to make myself available as much as they need me, because that's important. But then I also feel like I got so much other work I need to be doing too. So there's a balance that I'm always trying to sort of balance out.
Absolutely. With that, there's the hub, right? On top of managing, supervising this team and making sure people get paid right. Tell us about this hub, because it's an amazing story. It's super exciting for you personally and professionally. So tell us all about the hub.
Well, the hub is it's a 20-acre campus with 4 buildings on it. And it came about because we were in a building downtown that we had for free, but someone decided they were going to sell the building. So then we were like, okay, well, where are we going to go? We ended up at that time, we were doing a series of entrepreneurship classes for youth. And there was a school that was about to be closed that somebody was renting space. So we went there. Eventually, we found out that the school was going to go up for a bid. We were challenged by one of your partners with Casey Foundation to try to get people in our communities to go to another community, Kentucky, and see what they were doing with schools that were being abandoned. And I got a group of people together. We went and we were like, we can do this. So we came back, we worked together for a year, came up with a proposal, showed that school board that we could offer more to our community if it was given to us than if they were to sell it to someone or tear it down. And we received the bid. We got the campus for 50 years at no cost. So we are owners of the entire campus along with another nonprofit organization, and we're doing it, And that's where my administrative assistant comes in really well. She manages the actual facility while I'm doing all these other things.
That's incredible. So many nonprofit founders I know just dream of being able to get a 50-year agreement, no cost, and a set of buildings right on 20 acres to do amazing things with their community, with the youth. Tell us a little bit about what goes on at the hub, and tell us the full name of the hub too.
Yeah. So the hub is called the Eliza Miller Opportunity Hub, and that is Eliza Miller is the name of the school that was the only agreement that we keep Eliza Miller in the name, and which is perfectly fine because she was a Black philanthropist who donated the first land in our community for an African American high school. Her reason for doing that was so that our children can stay home to be educated. And we are actually about to celebrate 100 years of that since she donated the first land. And 100 years later, we're still doing what she was doing back then. We're creating a space where our children can be educated when it comes to technology, when it comes to science, finances. There are opportunities that happen outside of rural communities that our children are not exposed to, even our adults are not exposed to because they're not accessible. And we are creating that with the space that we have. We also, in our community, there aren't a whole lot of spaces for Black families to come together, and we have filled that gap as well. The cafeteria is now an event center. We have one of the classrooms is a conference room that anybody can use at any time. The gym is used for people who just want exercise, community volleyball team, and ways, again, for the community to come together. Then the Delta Circles programming continues to focus on entrepreneurship, on innovation, on even health. We're doing a little bit of everything.
Wow, that's incredible. And what would you say is what's your organizational budget size roughly right now?
Right now, our budget's about 450,000 right
So, which
now.
is misleading, right? Because with the
Mhm.
space, you basically have, I don't know what the property values are out there, but at least
Yes,
probably $1 million
at
or
least,
something,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Uh,
at
uh,
least it's like 3 million is what the insurance would say.
mhm.
But yeah, absolutely. And then one of the things that I am working on right now, I was telling you, we're talking to attorneys for different reasons, but I want to make sure that we have it beyond 50 years, that it's indefinite. And I'm going to fight that battle now so that 50 years from now, that battle won't have to be fought. Because we know that the investment that we're making in the community, in the space, is one that will be here for generations.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's beautiful because you also have a personal connection to the school, right? You and your family?
Absolutely, absolutely. The school, so many people story is part of that school. I went there in the 7th and 8th grade. My children have gone to school there. My daughter, she was in the 4th grade there. So I have memories of myself in the cafeteria, building friendships and relationships that are still in my life today. Then other rooms, I have members of being at PTA meetings, for her, or watching her receive awards in the gym. So yeah, it is definitely a place, a great deal of history and meaning for our community.
And what I am seeing here is you have the ingredients for a really powerful fundraising campaign, 100 years, Eliza Miller School, Opportunity Hub, and all the programming that you're doing, the story of this, school being founded by a Black philanthropist and now being, managed by a Black-led organization for the Black community with an executive director who has personal connection, right? To the school in Delta Circles, and this story it's coming full circle, right?
Yeah. Well,
So
I am hearing a volunteer who's willing to help make that happen.
absolutely, count on me. I'm there. Let me know how I can help. I'm willing to chip in.
Yes,
We're seeding something here, Patricia.
yes,
Something
absolutely.
powerful. Yeah, for the future of your community.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I see you got the vision and you laying it out for us to be a part of this. So thank you. And sincerely, you can count on me. You can call me. I'll help you
I,
out. I
I
want to be a part of this
appreciate that.
story. 100%.
Yes.
Final question I'd like to ask you is just, your growth as a leader into the role of executive director. What would you say what's contributed most to your growth and your leadership over your tenure as the founder and executive director of Delta Circles?
I think there were two turning points for me. That was, you remember I was telling you about the really down time when we actually, our 501c3 was lost for a moment. I really thought about, is this what you should be doing? And I asked myself a question. There's a book, Good to Great, and one of the questions in the book is, what can you be the best in the world at? And I thought about myself. I considered real estate for a while. I went out, got my real estate license. So I was like, okay, you have an accounting degree. Could it be accounting? Could it be real estate? Could it be nonprofit work? And the answer was the nonprofit work. I felt like I could be the best. And so I pursued it. I went to get my master's in public service because I wanted to understand the language of philanthropy, the language of nonprofit sector. Because even though Little Rock is just 2 hours from us, when I would go to Little Rock and have meetings there, it was like they didn't get us. But I didn't know the language to speak so that they could understand what we were doing and what we needed. So when I realized that was a turning point for me. But one of my biggest turning points occurred through a storytelling exercise. I had a lady come to teach our team how to tell their own personal story. So I did the pre-work before the next day when we were going to have the class. And the prompt was, to think of something in your life that you'll never forget, a moment that you'll never forget. And I thought about this moment, which was really crazy, and that's how I told her. I said it was a crazy moment, but I remember sitting on the side of my bed and having this sort of epiphany of just being in like this cave, but getting out, and then going back and getting my children out, and going back and getting others out. And I remember thinking, but that could not have happened because I was married. And I was like, if I was in a cave, my husband would have gotten us out. It wouldn't be me. And I felt even ashamed. I was like, I just felt like I was being arrogant. I didn't know that within a matter of years, I would not be married, that we would have gone through a divorce, that I would have gotten my family out of a very uncomfortable situation. But that story, reflecting on that, helped me to see that I have always been a leader. And at first, I didn't see that. I was just sort of stumbling through my ability as a leader. I gave myself the title of being a CEO, but I didn't really feel like a CEO. And when I realized and looked back, I was like, wait a minute, all that I have been doing, I am that. And that was a turning point for me in how I started to see myself, how I started to operate again as a boss, making tough decisions. And I think it really changed how my organization moved forward.
Wow, thank you. That's a really beautiful story, and I appreciate you sharing that with us and your vulnerability. Definitely some lessons to be taken there from your experience and perspective on that. And again, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up the episode?
I, again, would just like to thank you for even having me. And I just appreciate that. I appreciate all that you do.
Well, it's a pleasure. And I'm grateful to you for coming on and having the opportunity to work with you and continue to work with you in the future.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Patricia, thank you so much. Yeah, we'll put this out there, tell people to support your work, Delta Circles, and have a great rest of your day.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for listening to How to Build a Nonprofit. If you liked the episode, check out the show notes for a link to donate to our guest organization, and give us a rave review while you're at it. Feel free to leave comments and questions on your app about what intrigued you most. If you have any suggestions for future guests, email us at howtobuildanonprofit@gmail.com.